In the last episode of Talk Commerce for 2022, we speak with Rani Mani, the digital media customer communication lead at Adobe. We talk about all things community and why some companies get community wrong. Rani is deeply passionate about making customers successful and harnessing the power of customer feedback to improve the overall customer experience. Rani does this at scale over social media and is constantly looking at new and exciting ways to pinpoint areas where companies are making it especially difficult to do business with them. Rani is skilled at working with cross-functional teams across the company to figure out ways of reducing customer effort. In addition to being keenly interested in reducing customer effort, she is equally schooled in strategies for providing exemplary support over social channels and cultivating and nurturing community engagement so the company can be a community-driven business. Talk Commerce is sponsored by Haifa, or as the Europeans say, Hoofa, or the right way to say it. Hoofa is rapidly becoming the biggest Magento front end after Luma. For those who don't know it, Luma is the basic theme that comes with Magento, and it is giantly slow. If you're looking for a template-based front end with the fastest loading times in the e-commerce industry while saving costs on development time and hosting infrastructure, Hoofa is your best option. Everybody loves a fast site, including Google. Improve your Google ranking and conversion rates and make your customers happy. Learn more at hyva.io. That's hyva.io. My name is Brent Peterson, and I'm your host. Please remember to subscribe wherever you download your podcasts. And now, Talk Commerce. Welcome to this special New Year's Eve version of Talk Commerce. Today I have Rani Mani. She is the customer communication storytelling manager. Rani, you go ahead. Tell us your role and what you do day to day, and maybe one of your passions in life.
Yeah, hi, Brent. So my day to day at Adobe is telling the story of our individual customers. So predominantly our customers using Creative Cloud to do amazing things in the world. And I'm incredibly passionate about that just because people are truly changing the world, and Adobe happens to power that. And so that's been super, super satisfying to be a part of.
Yeah, it's great. And we met through the Adobe Insiders program in 2019. Can you believe that? At the Adobe Summit, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so we met right around that time. And you are no longer with that group. So you're moved on to a group, but you've so graciously been involved in our little mini insider group that you've so kindly come on to the podcast today.
Oh, yes. No, there's no way that I could be too far away from the group with so many friends, and it's so much more about the people than anything programmatic about the program. So, yeah, I'm thrilled to be here, Brent.
Good, thank you. So, before we get into our content, and I think one of the things we're going to talk about is community, you have graciously said that you would participate in the free joke project. So I'm just going to tell you a joke, and all you have to do is say, should this joke be free or can somebody charge for it at some point? All right, here we go. What's a sea monster's favorite food? Fish and chips.
Yeah, I think that should be free, Brent.
Thanks. I was going to preface with that most of my jokes are not even worthy of saying, but, free is very liberal. Thank you so much. All right. So community, in our green room, you just mentioned briefly about that it's sometimes community gets lost and how people do community is lost. Can you just kind of expand on that?
I think people lose sight of the fact that community is all about the individual, right? And what's in it for them and what makes their heart sing and how can they band together to support and cheer on one another. That it's not meant to be transactional, and a lot of companies and even individuals, even nonprofits that I see trying to rally the community make it about other things other than the individual. And I often wonder, Brent, like, is it not the most obvious thing that the community should be about the people that are in it? And why are we making so much a big deal around the cause or the corporation or whatever the external thing is, as opposed to diving into the people? Because I feel like once you dive into the people and they are loyalists and they're bound to one another, no matter what the thing is, they will stay intact, which I think is a real testament of how our Insiders program runs. I could come in and out of it. Adobe may or may not be a part of it, but I feel like that group will forever last now, the way we've set it up. I feel very confident about that because you're all so connected to one another that it's a real thing of beauty to watch.
Yeah, I like what you said about not transactional, and I think leaders in positions that look for ROI want to figure out how can this transaction give us value. And I think that's the first mistake anybody would make in building community. I like what you said about it's about the person. Maybe just tell us a little bit more how you feel, what you think about how focusing on that person helps build community, because some might think that's backwards, like it should be focused on the community. But I agree with you that it is about the people in the community, and focusing on each of those people helps the community to become stronger.
Yeah, well, I feel like there is no community without the individual, and a community happens to be the sum of multiple individuals. And so to me, the most basic atom of that community is the individual. So I want to focus on who are you, Brent, and what makes you sing, right? What lights you up, and what are you trying to do in the world, and how can Adobe and how can I be a part of that, and how can this community assist you in that, right? Like when you start with that premise, then it's a win-win for all. But I feel like it's no different, Brent, than anything in life, right? Whatever it is that you're doing in life, if you don't start with the individual and what does success look like to them and what gets them out of bed today and what are their hopes and dreams, like how are you going to get to the heart of anything if you don't start at that very basic level of the person?
Yeah, and I think the way you've described it too, taking it. So if the flip side would be that some company wants to create community and they want the community to be about the company, and then everybody loses focus on the people in it because there's no common bond between the people. It's all just the company, and the company's whatever they're trying to do is what's driving that community.
Right.
Where organically community should be built because people want to participate in it.
Right. And the company should and can be a part of it. Like, I feel like our Adobe Insiders group has and will continue to do somersaults for Adobe, right? Like, I feel like this group does amazing things on behalf of Adobe and are very quick to defend and promote and all of that, for which Adobe is incredibly grateful for. But in the event Adobe were to ever step out of that community continues. I really firmly believe that because you all have established such a bond and there are so many connective tissue threads within the group that it's really wonderful.
Yeah, and I think, the part of the way I got into the Adobe community was through Magento, which was a Adobe acquisition. And I can say that, the Magento community operates the same in a similar fashion, where the community really is the driver of everything around what the corporation would like to see. But there's no oversight from some big brother saying, you as a community have to do this. And I like what you said about, they'll do somersaults over it because they're passionate about what they're doing, right? Like everybody in the community is passionate about some aspect of what they're in it for.
Right, right. Everybody gets something slightly different, and there is no overarching, you need to attend this many meetings and you need to tweet this many times. And I very purposely left it that way, right? Because I just felt like there was much bigger things that bound us together as people. That would be, that would have a much greater staying power than providing some arbitrary structure like that, you know?
Yeah, maybe talk a little bit about the difference of how we can help to tell each of our own stories rather than a company's story. Like as a community, does it really help the community to tell the story about the company, or does it help the community to tell the story about individual who are in the community?
Well, I don't see it as a mutually exclusive thing. I mean, if you think about it, Brent, our community does both, right? Our community um, gives the name and face and personality to the Adobe logo, right? As you tell different things that you're doing using Adobe products, it's your story, but ultimately gets wrapped up into Adobe story as well, right? So I feel like both needs to happen for it to be a real compelling, memorable story.
Yeah, I can remember so Magento Imagine, the last one was 2019, and then the Adobe Summit followed up. But during that, we got Adobe Rush as a free gift for attending, blah, blah, blah. And I remember sitting there in that I attended one of the Adobe Rush specific, like there was some kind of a tutorial event or some kind of kickoff event that said, hey, this is what it actually does. And I remember creating an image creating a short video during the session that said, hey, I've made this while multitasking in my Adobe Rush session on Adobe Rush using Adobe Rush, and then I published it by the end of the session. So, I mean, I think it kind of gives to how we can be passionate about a product and also promote a product while doing a product and sitting in listening about a product. I don't know where I'm going with this story, but
No,
it was still fun.
Very, very true. But not all products and services lend itself to that, right? Adobe is in a real unique position to have such an iconic brand and so many products that are within the fabric of our culture that it lends itself to exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's not as exciting to say, hey, I've created an integration using Adobe I/O while I was doing my Adobe I/O session, and now
Oh
I
my
can
gosh,
make
you
AEM
are
talk
not
to
joking.
Adobe Commerce.
Or the people who are part of like, what do you call it, washing machines or, dryers or, I often, when I first started the group, I was like, this is criminal that I get to do this because it's just the how Adobe is set up and what we offer the world. I feel like people clamor to be a part of it. So it's such a natural, like, dare I say, easy thing to mobilize the community around.
Yeah, so maybe just if you could speak a little bit to how you see the storytelling, and if there's anything different. Is there a magic sauce in the Adobe community, or is it something that is just inherently good because the community is building what the community's building?
Well, I think the magic sauce are the people, right? Like the love, if any individual within the group were to pull back or new people came in, the ethos would be different, right? And that isn't to say that we don't always welcome or look for new people, but I think there's something very special about the existing people within the community and the amount of time you've all been together, the kind of hopes and dreams and struggles that you've all shared with one another. You've been in some of our happy hours, Brent. I mean, and we get very up close and personal, right? We're talking about um, you know, deaths and marriages and divorces and you know, custody battles. And I mean, we talk about some really milestone, real heartstringing kind of things. And so that kind of vulnerability and that kind of connection with one another, it's very much driven by the people.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, and I think the key to a good community is just what you were saying about it's not just about some one thing, that there's so many aspects around that, and we all have our own lives, right? And our own lives contribute to the community, and whatever we do in our lives helps to build that community and make it stronger. And then, maybe you could just speak to a little bit about each of us in a community has a strong point. So, each of us has one little aspect that adds to it and makes it a really strong community. How important do you think the diversity in that community is?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I think about diversity, I think about it more than just ethnic and cultural diversity, right? I'm thinking about it as diversity of thought, diversity of backgrounds, um, perspective. And that's so important because we don't, I mean, how boring would it be if we're all like one another, right? There have been things brought up and new and innovative ideas that have been offered due to the diversity, and we've all benefited from it. So that's why I'm so impressed with you, Brent, that in addition to being a part of the Magento community, that you still took that leap of faith and became a part of this community that at first I'm sure felt like a bunch of doorknobs, right? Because there was no one product or one campaign or one anything that bound us together. I basically brought a group of people together, and my ultimate filtering was, are these decent human beings? Oh, and of course, who happens to have a decent social footprint, who are doing new and interesting things in the world of digital experiences. But my ultimate criteria was, are these people that I admire enough and feel comfortable enough with that I would actually invite into my own home and expose my 4 kids to? Right? That was my ultimate criteria. And without exception, every single one of you that's part of this group, it's a resounding yes to that. And and so it's been a great thing, right? Like not just the passion, but the level of goodness of the human being. Right? We've just got a really good
Yeah,
group of people.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and for the kids thing, I'm worried more about the community members and my kids. Like they're exposed to my kids because never mind.
Yeah.
I was going down a bad joke path there. Yeah, and I guess I wasn't necessarily when I was thinking about diversity, I wasn't necessarily thinking about cultural, ethnic, but that is a good part of it. It is important in a community for people to have different strong points, and I'm part of the commerce community, which gives me a different view on things. And now, for me personally, what I've learned from going to the Adobe Summit when it was live in person, but then attending the virtual ones, was that there's so much more to the whole experience that a customer would have using something like Adobe or using any kind of platform, that we can all become better people or even better in our own personal roles that we're doing because we're exposed to this diversity in what everybody's doing. So there could be one person who's marketing and there's one person who's data or commerce or whatever. Like we all get together and we talk. I think that's as important in that community as the community itself.
Yep. No, I agree. I agree. And the ethnic diversity has been a real treat as well because Adobe really stands for amplifying and elevating the diverse voices that we represent in the community, right? In terms of our customer base. And so that was important to me as well, that we had that right mix of cultural and ethnic diversity within our group, because ultimately, um, perspective is made up of who you are and where you come from, right? And so we have a real nice mix of that within our group as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to applaud you for helping us to tell our stories in the community. I think, I had I think it's been a while now, but you helped me quite a bit to be able to tell my story to the community. And I think I have a blog post out there somewhere. Anyways, it doesn't matter. That part doesn't matter.
There is. And it was a beautifully done story as well, Brent. In fact, we should link to that from this podcast so that people can see it, because and this is at the premise of who Adobe is. We believe that everyone has a story to tell, and whatever we can as a company, given our products and services, whatever we can do to empower and enable you to tell your story, then we've done our job.
Yeah, that's awesome. Rani, we're quickly running out of time. I know we wanted to target 10 to 15 minutes. So as we close out the podcast, I give a guest the opportunity to do a shameless plug about anything. What would you like to plug today?
Yes, I would love to plug a nonprofit organization in the Bay Area by the name of Project Hired. I'm a very, very proud board member of the organization. And the organization is focused on providing, advocacy and providing employment services for the disabled community. Disabled people make up 1 in 4 people in the world are disabled. And unfortunately, disabled people are woefully underemployed. And so this organization provides counseling and guidance and all sorts of services to help individuals with disabilities get employment. And so I would love for the audience to take a look into Project Hired and participate with them in any which way that you feel inclined. Obviously, during the holidays and going into the new year, we're always looking for donations, and donations don't always have to be in the form of money. It can be volunteering. It can be if you're a part of a company that has open jobs that you would like to do some matchmaking with our clients. That would be incredible. So many different ways to participate and to give.
Yeah, thank you for that. And incidentally, I just did an interview with a company that does something similar. It's called John's Crazy Socks, and they hired disabled individuals in there. And I don't know what the percentage is, but it's a large. That's one of their missions, and they talked a lot about the mission of whatever the company is has to reflect what their customers are wanting. And I feel as though Adobe does reflect that in itself, and with the employees and people like you that help to promote causes like this and help to amplify the voices.
Yes, no, most definitely.
Rani Mani, thank you so much for being here today. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, and I wish you a very happy new year.
Oh, a very happy new year to you as well, Brent. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.